Hello. Here we are back again with chapter 13. So we talked about cultures and subcultures. And now we're going to talk about cross-cultural marketing. So we're going to explore consumer behavior across cultures and effective strategies for appealing to consumers around the globe. Because we do live in a global society where many businesses operate in more than one country. So as you know from your Marketing 1 class, there are essentially two different approaches you can take when you quote-unquote go global. One is to have a standardized product and communication, and one is to have customized. So that's a decision that you have to make based on a variety of different factors in terms of cultural differences in the product itself and that kind of thing. Okay, so you want to do a cross-cultural analysis, and that's the analysis that determines the extent to which the consumers of two or more nations are similar or different. And from that, then you will decide as to whether you do the standardized or adopted or customized. Cross-cultural analysis can really provide marketers with understanding the psychological, social, and cultural characteristics of the foreign consumers that they wish to target. And then, that they can design effective marketing strategies for specific markets involved. Okay. So we're going to look at a variety of different, lots and lots of charts. Because when you're doing comparison, there's lots of different charts. So this is what I found from the book. So these are some things you might consider when you're doing a cross-cultural analysis. Language and meaning, market segment opportunities in terms of demographic, that kind of thing. Consumption patterns, how much money people have. Perceived benefits of the products. How people determine or evaluate products and services. Economic and social conditions, and also the family structure you're going to look at. Style of family decision making can vary from country to country or culture to culture. Ability in marketing research, ability to conduct marketing research in the company, and also what some of the different possibilities are that you can take a look at. That's a cross-cultural analysis. Okay, and then similarities and differences. So, for example, this is a compare-contrast with Chinese cultural traits and American cultural traits. You can read through them. The Chinese tend to generally be more collectivist culture, so they're centered on relationships, more centered on relationships, where Americans are centered on the individual. Generally speaking, the Chinese have, and again, these are generalizations that are very defer to authority, whereas Americans are, again, more independent and more interested in self-reliance. So you can go through that, it's more traditional idea of collectivist versus individualistic society. And, you can do that with a variety of you can do that with just about every culture. You can go through and take a look. In organizational behavior, we talk about different types of cultural dimensions. And that's another way you can look at it in terms of, masculinity and femininity and power, how people approach power, that kind of thing. Anyway, this is another way to look at that. Okay. Consumer styles. It's the idea that whether there's differences in terms of consumer style, that is how a consumer approaches a purchase and consumption experience, including attitudes, beliefs, decision rules about price and value. So there are some companies that are essentially, there's 4 different clusters: price-sensitive consumers, variety-seeking consumers, brand-loyal consumers, and information-seeking consumers. So you can take a look, across to develop a profile of the consumer. And again, if you're going, we'll take a look here. So if you're going to quote unquote go global or move your product into another country, you're going to be interested in what it is that generally speaking, what their consumers are interested in. Okay, so some measures of cross-cultural aspects. So with the quality, how willing people are to buy products. Ethnocentrism is this idea of willingness to buy foreign-made products. Some people are not willing to buy foreign-made products. Perceptions of with the consumption, the culture is like acculturalization is this idea of identification with the country's culture. Do you identify with the German culture, the French culture, that kind of thing. How you self-identify ethnically and how you self-identify in terms of nationally. Okay, so attitudes towards local and global products. So you can either agree or disagree. This is a way to measure what people are thinking. Again, you can go through and read through what we might talk about. For entertainment, I enjoy entertainment that I think is popular in many countries and around the world more than traditional entertainment that's popular in my own country, that kind of thing. And then again, more on measures of cross-cultural aspects in terms of independence. I'd rather depend on myself than others. My personal identity is independent of others, and that's important to me. So interdependence, well-being of my group members is important for me. I feel good when I cooperate with my group members. These are all ideas and attitudes that people have in different countries. Power, I easily conform to the wishes of someone in a higher position than me, or it's difficult for me to refuse a request from someone if a senior asks me. So you go through all of these things are going to impact whether or not you're going to be willing to buy a product from a foreign country. So gender equality, it's okay for men to be emotional sometimes. Men don't have to be the sole breadwinner of a family. In some cultures, how people view that and masculinity differs from culture to culture. Okay, acculturalization we talked about before, a process by which marketers learn via cross-cultural analysis, which we've been talking about the values, beliefs, and customs of other countries, of other cultures, and then apply it to marketing internationally. And that's very important, because if someone has a quote-unquote attitude towards another country, it can be very hard. You might need to market to them, you might need to dispel some of those myths. So essentially they go through a two-step process. They have to learn everything that's relevant to the product and product category in the society in which they plan to market. And then they have to persuade or quote-unquote teach the members at the society to break with their traditional ways of doing things and adopt the new product. And then they have to figure out what's about the culture, and then figure out a way to get them to change it. So you'll see that a lot. You have to get people to break with their traditions. You'll see that in the food industry certainly, and that's something that people talk about a lot. The idea of bringing American food to South American and Asian cultures where the food is really associated with the culture and really associated with the land, and then American companies are bringing our processed food to them. And to get people to stray from that is very difficult. It's something that people talk a lot about. It's very controversial in terms of maintaining ethnic traditions and also health issues. It's also raised a lot of health issues. It contributes or introduces new health issues to other countries. Okay, so there are some difficulties in doing consumer research. So this gives us some examples of the basic issues that multinational marketers or global marketers have to consider when planning cross-cultural research. Conducting consumer research studies in other foreign countries is often difficult. So, for example, sometimes it's hard to conduct Western-style market research in Islamic countries of the Middle East. In Saudi Arabia, for example, it's illegal to stop people on the streets, and focus groups are impractical because most gatherings of 4 or more people, with the exception of family and religious gatherings, are outlawed. American firms desiring to do business in Russia, for example, have found limited amount of information regarding consumer and market statistics And similarly, marketing research information on China is generally inadequate, and surveys that ask personal questions arouse suspicion, so that's a problem. Marketers have tried other ways to elicit the data that they need, but not always successful. So the other problem, too, is that a lot of times in international marketing research, we talked about scales of measurement. Like, we'll see, here we'll say rate something from 1 to 5. So, so for us, a 5 or 7 point scale might be okay, but in other countries, a 10 or even 20 point scale might be needed. So, also the whole idea of doing marketing, telephone marketing research might be unavailable in other countries because of the fact that, they just don't have the same level of, communication access that we have. Okay, so this just gives you some examples of how some products have been customized. Japan, it's Donald McDonald versus Ronald McDonald. In Japan also they have corn soup and green tea milkshakes because green tea is very popular there. You can go through and read these. Pizza Hut's considered casual dining in China. Starbucks coffee in Europe, not necessarily very popular because of the fact that Europeans are known for their very they're known for their coffee, and people are hesitant hesitant to try an American coffee brand, so that they've tried to alter it to accommodate local tastes and need for takeaway services. So sunglasses, too, being made with technical tweaks to better suit Asian facial characteristics, because and this again is just based on research that's been done. The way glasses rest on someone's face. You also say in some countries, some European countries, you can say in some Scandinavian countries, people are very tall and thin, and so clothes have to be made a little bit differently than they might be made here. Where people are not quite as tall. Okay, linguistic barriers. One of the classic ones is, we talk about linguistics, we talk about language. Then there used to be a Chevy Nova back in the day, and Nova in Spanish means no-go. So they changed it to Caribe. So Parker pens, again, had a little problem. Its ads were supposed to say it won't leak in your pocket and embarrass you. However, the company mistakenly thought the Spanish word for embarazar meant embarrass. Instead, the ad said it won't leak in your pocket and make you pregnant. So that's a good example of how you need to have a really good translator. So you can go through. Taiwan, the translation of the Pepsi slogan, "Come alive with Pepsi generation," came out as "Pepsi will bring your ancestors back from the dead." So, whoops, that's a big oops. So anyway, just give you some ideas. Okay, so promotional appeals also are some things that people need to consider. Humorous advertising works out better in some countries than others. In the UK, riskier, more aggressive, and effective humorous advertisements are used. In contrast, Greeks prefer neutral, humorous advertisements whose appeal is not perceived as very offensive, so that were considered more suitable. So again, we talked about this collectivist versus individualistic appeals, depending upon what the country is focused on. So collectivist is this idea that everybody is sort of working together. Individualistic is this idea that everyone's out for themselves. Okay, global brands. Let's talk about global brands. So there are this idea of quality signal. Consumers believe that the more people who purchase a brand, the higher the brand's quality, which often results in global brand being able to command a premium price. And also consumers worldwide believe that global brands develop new products and breakthrough technologies at a faster pace than local brands. So that's something to think about. There's also the idea of global myths that sometimes view global brands as a kind of cultural ideal. And social responsibility is also very important to some companies. Global companies are held in a higher level of corporate social responsibility than local brands. and are expected to respond to societal problems associated with what they sell. Excuse me. All right. This whole other idea of global citizens. A global citizen is someone who belongs to the world, and that people tend to feel very, that empowers people. Global dreamers view global brands as quality products and are not particularly concerned about social responsibility issues. So you want to think about that. Anti-globals feel that brands are higher quality than local brands, but they dislike brands that preach U.S. values and don't trust global companies to act responsibly. So generally speaking, they try to avoid purchasing global brands. And global agnostics are people that evaluate global brands in the same way that they evaluate local brands. That they're indifferent as to whether or not a product is global or not. So these are different things that that marketers have to deal with, attitudes and perceptions that marketers have to deal with when they're going global. Okay, so let's just take a look at, again, this is from the book, the top global brands and appeals. You can go through them: Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Louis Vuitton, Amazon, and H&M. And again, more top global brands: Disney, of course, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Toyota, eBay, and Nike. How those are perceived worldwide. Okay, so why do we want to pursue a global market? So one is this whole idea of multinational or global fever. It's this idea that multinational brands are very attractive, and that kind of thing. There's also overseas markets offer a lot of growth, whereas here many products that might be mature. There's markets that are opening up. People, in terms of opening up, there's increased consumer power. That there's more opportunity. That there's a certain level. There's a limit as to how much money you can make on your brand domestically. So go global. And then also in some countries, buying foreign products is very appealing. Okay, so this is a chart from the book that looks at spending power of different countries. It compares gross income, disposable income, and consumption, actual expenditures. So you want to look and see. So Norway, for example, has very high gross income, but moderate spending. So you want to go through and just give you an idea. Okay, middle class and teen market worldwide is something that is something of interest to people. It's certainly growing. Overall, teenagers and their somewhat older brothers and sisters, considered the young adult segment, appear to have quite similar interests, desires, and consumption behavior, no matter where they live. People are people. Therefore, in response to this perspective, consumer researchers have explored the makeup, composition, and behavior of the segment. They're very interested in that. And, growing teen market. Okay, so let's take a look here at looking at psychographic segmentation. Okay, so Japan businesses use the Japan VALS framework to monitor Japan's consumer environment, to generate new product ideas, segment Japanese consumers into potential target markets, differentiate brands, and develop effective pricing, distribution, and promotion strategies. Okay, so we've talked about VALS before. It's the way to psychographically profile people. Japan VALS segments stem from consumers' primary motivations and degree of innovativeness, where innovativeness is measured as attitudes towards social change. In terms of how do we identify innovativeness, it's based on attitudes towards social change. Primary motivations include tradition, achievement, and self-expression. So, as you can see from this, Japanese consumers are classified within 3 factors according to their degree of innovativeness, where integrators are the most innovative and sustainers the least. So that gives you an idea of how, when we talk about rate of innovation and that kind of thing, people are interested in that in terms of, again, what is the message? We're always asking ourselves, what is the message going to be? Where are we going to place our product? looked at the tactics of the tactical aspect of marketing, the 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion. So looking at the psychographic profile, how are we going to craft our product, distribute our product, send the message of our product, price our product to get people to buy things. All right, and then this idea of 6 global value groups. So Roper Starch Worldwide, which is a research firm, interviewed 35,000 consumers in 35 countries in order to identify shared values, which is irrespective of national borders. The research sought to uncover the bedrock values in people's lives so as to understand the motivations that drive both attitude and behavior. And after completing the interviews in North and South America, Asia, and Europe, 6 global groups were uncovered. The strivers are ambitious and materialistic. The devouts are responsible, respectful, and conservative. The altruists are unselfish in their concern for others, society, and the future. The intimates focus on social relationships and families. The fun seekers are young in age and outlook, and they value adventure and good times. And creative seeks knowledge and insight and have a keen interest in books and new media. So again, this idea of going global, and on the one hand, there are cultural differences that divide us, but ultimately people are people. And so this is a way to look at within groups that are similarities across cultures and countries as opposed to our dissimilarities across cultures and countries. Okay, so that's a quick look at cross-cultural. I hope that it has helped you, and we'll see you back here with chapter 14. Thanks, guys.